Mason. We finally made it.
Really? Made what?
We made it to 50.
50. 5-0. Wait,
5-0.
5-0.
5-0, episode 50.
Shit.
So I think that deserves a cheers, don't you?
All right. Yeah, let's do it.
Cheers, buddy. Oh, you're going with the glass?
All right. Let me switch.
Right. Cheers.
Uh,
All right, let's just go with the bottle. Let's just stay with the bottle.
All right, I'm down.
Cheers.
Cheers.
We're back.
We are back, baby.
Back and live, episode 50, 5-0, with the Assemblage Beverage podcast. Woo! That
feels spicy.
That is some spicy stuff.
Spicy.
Mason, before we get into episode 50, I've got not one, but two ad reads for this podcast. And guess what? We're wheeling and dealing out here today. So, I will say, yep.
Blackjack!
We're just blackjacking all over the place. Blackjacking before we get blacked out on this podcast. So, we are going to our website where we are offering 50% off for basically the rest of the month of August on all of our merch. So, with that being said, you know, we've got lots of nice cold weather gear because I don't know if it's getting chilly where you are, Mason, but it's getting a little frigid in the mornings. So get your hoodie, your beanie, your t-shirts, all that good stuff on www.assemblagebevco.com. All of it is 50% off. You won't even need a code. It's going to already be discounted to 50% off. So www.assemblagebevco.com. Again, t-shirts, hats, hoodies, all that stuff, 50% off. And now, and now instead of onto the podcast, we've got our second, not really ad read, but our second annual Assemblage scholarship is live now. It is through Somm Foundation, it is the Assemblage Wine Scholarship for Aspiring Sommeliers. And it's a great way for someone who is not into wine currently, but is looking to break into the wine industry. There's 2 scholarships available. It will cover up to level 2 through WSET or up to level 2 with Quartermaster Sommeliers. Super easy application process. You just have to go to www.sommfoundation.com/scholarships. Scroll down to the Assemblage Wine Scholarship for Aspiring Sommeliers. Fill out the application, and you could win up to a level 2 WSET or Quartermaster Sommelier, fully paid for. Process is open, or the scholarship application is open until November 13th. And again, just go and apply. www.sommfoundation.com/scholarships. And now, Mason, on to the podcast.
Woo! Right on.
We're back.
Number 50.
That's 50. Crazy. Number 50. Mason, what are you drinking tonight besides the bottle pull?
Oh, yes. So I am drinking that Sorte Extra Anejo tequila right here. It is delicious. I've had this for a really long time, so I figured I'd whip it out to just enjoy with this beautiful podcast because, it's got a little crown on it. We are the kings of beverage. We are the rackers, the stackers, whatever you want to call it, for tequila. The blackjackers. We are ready for all of the slackers. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Keep on drinking, but only if you're 21. No.
Yeah. Don't
but I'm also
be like us. Wait till you're 21.
Right, exactly. But I'm also drinking another bottle over here. I'm also drinking a little Weller whiskey because Weller whiskey is one of my favorite whiskeys I've ever gotten into because it was my introduction to the finer things of whiskeys.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. What are you sipping on?
besides the bottle pull of Basil Hayden, I'm drinking a whiskey ginger beer with a little bit of Fever Tree ginger on
Ooh,
a
yeah.
big cube. And the ginger beer I put in the freezer for about 45 minutes. So it was a little bit slushy when I poured it into the glass. So it was a
Oh
nice little
yeah.
whiskey ginger slush, which is nice.
A
Very
nice little
nice.
nod to whiskey season. I love it.
Yep. And you all know me. I'm not a big whiskey drinker, but when in whiskey season, you drink whiskey. So here we are.
You're
And I'm
gonna
not,
wet
I'm
your
not,
whiskey wallet. It
yeah,
didn't work.
I'm wetting the whiskey whistle today.
Whis- yeah.
Um, and today I feel like we've been talking about this podcast for at least a couple episodes now with episode 50. And, we had every intention of doing it big. And not that we're not doing it big, but, we talked about getting guests or, doing some sort of big deal podcast, all that good stuff. But you know what? Life got in the way. We both been crazy busy, both been running around like crazy
Chickens
people
with their
for the
heads cut off.
chickens with the head cut off.
Yep.
And you know what? We are embracing that. We are humans. We work full time plus do this on the side. So, you know what? Sometimes you don't have time to go out and scrounge up a guest. And so today's episode is called Playing Catch Up. We're just playing catch up with life. Mason and I haven't talked to each other at all in like, what, almost 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so you're going to kind of get a look into how we chat with each other. We're going to talk a little bit about previous podcasts and some of our favorites that we've done together. And then, we're just going to get into like how life's been, because life's been crazy. So, um, Mason, what are some of your favorite podcasts we've done together? So, for the record, and I don't know that you know this, but we've now done more podcasts together than I did by myself previously. So
Wow.
Mason has been a part of more than half of the podcasts. As
That's what I'm talking
of
about.
episode 46, I think. But I forgot to mention it. So Mason is here, and he's here to stay, and he's here for a good time and a long time. So,
Yeah.
Mason, I want to hear some of your favorite podcasts that we've recorded so far.
Right on. Well, of course, um, the introductory podcast where we just got to, get to know each other, get to know each other for our guests
Mm-hmm.
and for our listeners out there, and just kind of get to chat like old times. Where I think this one will also get to do a little bit more of that. I think going into it, boozing with the bros was probably one of the more fun ones we've done in terms of like just total chaos on there. And
Mm-hmm.
once we got everybody got a little tipsy, it got even better. So I think we definitely learned quite a bit from that one.
Yeah, and what were we drinking on that one, Mason? I
Uh,
can barely remember.
you can barely remember how terrible and delicious and four crazy people can get for four locos in the Sunoco. I don't know.
Yeah, it
I'm
was the Bro Loco episode.
It was bro loco. It was loco, bro. It was.
Yeah, and that podcast really was chaotic because it was the first podcast that we had done with a guest, and let alone not just one guest, but two guests. And not only that, but both guests were, one was your brother, one was my brother. And not only that, but we were also drinking Four Loco. So it was like you and I had only done a couple of podcasts together as co-hosts, and then
Yeah.
both of our brothers, I don't think had ever been on a podcast. Maybe your brother's been on one, but my brother had never been on a podcast. So like they were going, and we briefed them for a couple minutes, but like we just kind of like threw them
Went
into
right
it.
in. Yeah. It
And
was.
so
Just
it
raw
was
conversation.
yeah, there was not much. I mean,
uh,
we usually have our talking points and kind of we have kind of a not a schedule, but kind of some notes for the podcast. And we had some notes, and we were kind of going through them in the podcasts. And then at a certain point, it just became like the Four Locos took over, and it just became like, okay,
bro,
this is
I'm loco.
yeah, we're like this is the podcast now. It is just fucking
uh,
chaos with the Four Locos. But I love that podcast, and I think that for me, and this podcast has always been this way, right? Like for me, it's always about it being a time capsule and for us to have these great conversations and to look back on it. And now, like, I'm lucky that you're my co-host, so we can kind of share this experience together. And even before you joined the program, the conversations I had with my grandpa and some really great winemakers and some cool somms and some cool like professors from college, like to me that's more valuable than anything we'll ever make on this podcast is just those memories. um
yeah.
so yeah, that's kind of a sentimental bit, but I know you got some more favorites than that, Mason.
Oh, of course. We have a whole list of favorites that definitely could be there. I think one of the more uh, fun introductionary brand ones was the celebrity brand ones. When we
Mm-hmm.
talked about tequilas, had a really good time drinking a lot. Enjoying and discovering, some more of those brands that you were like, you know what, I would never buy that. But then you realize after sipping on it a few different times, you know what, I may go back to buy that again. You
Yeah,
know?
to me, Terramana, like I've got a bottle of Terramana Blanco right now in my back bar. Like it's a super smooth. I mean, we taste the Reposado, um,
Yeah.
but
But
the Blanco is great too.
it just gave you brand recognition, right?
Yeah, and honestly, like when it comes to celebrities, like I mean, I could care less about who the celebrity is. I care about the product itself, and is it good, and is it balanced, and is it cost effective, and everything. And like Terramana to me checks all those boxes, and so I think that was one of the first times I'd ever had it. And now it's like my if I see it on a menu and I'm out to dinner, like that's my kind of call tequila if I'm drinking the tequila tonic because it doesn't break the bank and it's delicious. So
Yeah. I think that is a beautiful way to describe it. And it was just a lot of fun to, find something also that you're like, I really will never get this. Like 1880 or 18. It's already hitting me. 818.
818, yeah.
I don't
I
know why
couldn't
I was
remember.
going 18.
I was
Just,
I was
it,
hoping it would
it,
come back to you because I'm like, what's that tequila called?
it's forgettable that's it. Just was
Yeah.
marshmallowy and gross and just not for me, right? It's just we got to discover something new that we were super not happy about, and I know I'll never order that or buy it again. It may sit on my back bar for a really long time
See, and I
because
will say it's no longer on my back bar because I did drink it all. I
you
like
just powered through it.
I powered through it. I didn't
Yeah.
like it, but I powered through it. And I mean, all those bottles that we had in that podcast are all gone.
Damn. um, I think uh I think the Terramana was the first to go for me. Casamigos was second, and that was only because I put it on the back bar because I was, drinking like tequila sodas, and I was like, you
Hmm.
know what, I'll just have the Terramana real easy.
Yep.
And then I just left the 818, and I just didn't go back to it. I tried
See
it
it.
one time after, and I was like, nah, I'm okay. I'm okay
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, and I mean for me, like I was like, well, I've got these bottles and I'm just gonna drink them, right? Because I drink tequila tonics, tequila sodas. So like for me, I'm like,
Right.
well, it saves me a trip to the liquor store because I have these bottles and I might as well drink them. So, and most of them were consumed during this podcast. So it was just kind of. I would usually like have a couple of Terramanas or Casamigos, and then I would like have a 818 when I was like I didn't really care about the flavor anymore, just to get rid of it
Yeah.
because it was tough.
Yeah. Well, it'll be here probably for all party things we have at the house from here on out.
I'll
Just
come to your house and I'll drink it. I'll get rid of
yeah,
it
I'll
for
put
you.
it out for you. Sounds
I
good. I
I'll,
appreciate it.
I'm gonna be shitty about it, but I'll drink it.
Really? You just gonna pull out the 818, huh?
Yeah,
I know
I'm
you
gonna
hate
be
this shit.
I'm gonna be real shitty about it, but I'm gonna drink it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gosh.
I think one of my favorites too, and I think really this was the only other time we ever had a guest on the podcast together was our Line Cook Thoughts podcast with Ray, which was
Yeah.
super interesting because it was like a co-podcast. So we both recorded it, or no, I guess only one of us recorded it, but then we both put it out on our own platforms. And it was interesting because for the most part, he was interviewing us.
Right.
So I guess we kind of just piggybacked and stole his podcast and used it for our own benefit. But I
Whatever.
mean, we knew that going in, like that was the
You're
whole
right.
intention, right? And although to think about it, we did record it on our account and then I sent it to him. So I guess he stole our podcast.
So
Delucci,
we're the
if
big
you're
guys.
listening to this, we want royalties on that podcast. So no, but it was a great podcast. You know,
uh,
we talked about some things. You know, Ray is a super smart guy. The
yeah.
topics that he came to the table with, I was like, dude, I don't know that I'm ready to do this podcast because he's like, let's talk about AI and all this stuff. And I'm like, we talk about drinking, dude. Like we don't talk about that kind of stuff. But honestly, it was a really fun podcast. You know, it got us to kind of talk about things that aren't really in our comfort zone. We got to
Yeah.
talk about our time at CIA and all that kind of stuff. So like that was a great podcast. The Shots podcast was a lot of fun, even though we didn't do a ton of shots during that podcast. But
You know?
again, work. But
Yeah. We gotta really film the ones where we have to drink heavily on days that we both have the next day to recover,
yeah, which is really never.
which is hard. It's really hard to balance that out.
Yeah, no, because we both
Speaking
work.
of like work-life balance, oh,
Mm-hmm.
oh gosh,
That was our first podcast of this year, wasn't it? I
yes,
think
it
so.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
which
started on a
is
real positive note.
yeah, and now
Which
look at us.
yeah, there's no balance. No, and I
Gosh.
think that's kind of important, right? Because we can preach work life balance, and everyone says, "Oh, you got to have work life balance. You got to have work life balance." And I get how important it is, but reality and the thought process behind it usually don't match up because you know sometimes your job's not done at 40 hours a week. In my
No,
case it's never done at 40 hours a week, and in your case it's never done at 40 hours a week. Like aren't you preset to 50 hours?
preset to 55, 50, 55. But I always hit a lot higher because, you know, I I don't leave until the job is done.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what that means, if I'm staying an hour, 2 hours, am I going home and doing some things at home, working from home? Yeah, I got to do whatever I got to do to make sure my restaurant's running as perfect as possible. And learning how to, when it's your day off or your time off, to really cut it is the hardest thing to do because there will always be that
Mm-hmm.
something. There will always be more, no matter what, which is just wild.
Yeah, and I feel that too. You know, like I made a career change at the beginning of the year, and I went from managing restaurants, being a sommelier, to catering sales manager. And I was like, oh, I'm not gonna have to work nights. I'm not gonna have to work weekends. I'm gonna have all this free time. I'm gonna have so much work life balance. Like, no, that's not how sales works. Like, it can work that way, but I will say if you want to be successful in sales and you want to do big things and you want to shine, like, now granted, I do everything to the extreme, and I think Mason and I are very much the same way. Like, we don't stop until the job's done. And I think that that's really great in the eyes of our boss, maybe not so great in the eyes of our Mason's wife and my fiance,
Spouse.
our spouses. But I think that we're all in the same industry in some aspects, so I think we all understand, right? We all get it. And I'm still trying to figure out work-life balance, even though we did the podcast and like I thought we gave everyone the right tools. But it's a classic thing of practice what you preach, right? Follow your own advice.
Right.
I'm great at giving advice. I'm terrible at listening to advice, and I'm terrible at listening to my own advice and your advice, because it's just like, yeah, that's great in some alternate universe, but not in my universe. Like, I've got to work all day, every day, even on Saturday. And it's just like, you just got to grind. And
Yeah.
sometimes, and I think, the planning of this podcast, the grind got too real
Yeah.
for both of us. And
And
we both, like, not going to lie to y'all, we messaged each other this morning. I said, what do you want to record about? It's a big one. It's episode 50. And like, that's the reality of the situation. And but we want to continue to make these podcasts no matter what's going on, right? Like, we gotta figure it out. We gotta make these podcasts. Some weeks are amazing, some weeks are great, but gotta make it work, just
yeah,
like we gotta make our jobs work. So yeah, I
always.
mean, I'm still trying to figure out work-life balance, and I'm to the point where I don't know that I'll ever figure it out. I'm hoping one day, but like, I'm not gonna hold my breath on that.
I'm sure you'll figure it out. I'm sure it'll come at a time where money and time are no longer an option and you get to choose everything you want. But
That sounds nice.
until then,
Can
you'll
we
be
fast
working a
forward to
bunch.
then?
Yeah, I keep wanting to fast forward. Get that little click remote from Click from Adam
Yeah,
Sandler's movie.
but I also think that, if you just think about,
Skipped.
if you just skip all your life, like, what are you going to talk about when you get to the top, or when you finally have money, or you finally have this? Like, you can kind of say, this is where I started, this is where I'm at now. I started at the bottom, I'm still at the bottom, and I'm tired and I'm hungry, and but no, I'm being facetious now, but it's without the struggle and without the working your butt off, it makes it, when you finally start making money and you finally start getting to where you want to be, it makes the goal, like, the journey matches up to what the goal is, right? Like, in my
Yeah,
eyes, I don't know if that makes sense, but again, this whiskey is it's hitting me.
it's feeling good.
Yeah, I'm feeling great, but I feel like I'm getting real mushy and real sentimental. So uh some people get angry when they drink
Uh,
whiskey. I get fucking sad, and I start talking
uh,
about my feelings. So
uh, just hits right here. I just love it. You know what they say? Whiskey makes the heart feel fonder. I mean, wait, but wait,
wait, what?
wait, what?
No, and I think one of my other favorites too was when we talked about, like, the things we notice while we go out to eat, and
Mm,
while we're out and enjoying cocktails with our families, or just dining by
friends,
ourselves at the bar, or whenever
people
we
who
go
don't
out.
care.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's like, you can't turn it off. And
never.
even like last Friday, we went to dinner. Liv and I went to dinner, and we had ramen. We went to a ramen restaurant, and I think that was the first time in a long time where I didn't notice anything while we were eating out, because I was so tired, and like, I was to the point where I was like, I just want my cocktail, I want my ramen, and I want to go home and go to bed. Like, I
That
did
was
not
it.
even know what was going on around me. I didn't notice anything. Like, the service was fine. Like they got us our food fast, but I was like, that was the first time where I wasn't like hyper focused on what I'm eating or what's going on around me because I'm just like. But it was not, it was kind of nice, right? Like
Yeah.
it was nice to not just be so focused on everything and just be like, okay, we're having this conversation. I'm thinking about sleeping. I'm not thinking about like, all this stuff that really like doesn't matter in some regard, right? Like
Right.
they're going to keep doing the things that they're doing in the restaurant. It really doesn't have any effect on our life, like how they do things. But
No.
it's weird how when you're in the industry, you notice everything and you're like, well, if it was my restaurant, I wouldn't be doing it that way. It's like,
You never know.
you never
But
know.
but I think it's very interesting because Alex and I, we just hit our 1 year anniversary, which is wild because
Cheers to that.
cheers.
Congratulations, Mason.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Cheers.
Can't believe it's already been a year.
I know, right? It's
By the
crazy.
way, Mason and Alex's wedding, top notch.
Top notch.
Yeah.
It's still, I think that's one of the greatest things is like because of everything we did, all the pre-planning, all the desires that we want for how we expected our wedding to be. Everybody still talks about it, which is just fantastic. Like
Yeah.
friends, family, people that were just invited by the father-in-law. They like everybody still talks about one thing, and it's always something different, but or a couple of different things, and everybody's just like, "Wow, XYZ was just absolutely top notch." Was not expecting that.
But then
My
you kind
favorite
of
one.
get like the full scope of it, right? Because everyone's like, "Oh, I love the Amaro bar at the end," or "Oh, I love the fried chicken with your." It was like the KFC bucket with both of your faces on it. Like, so you kind of can live the whole thing because everyone has their own favorite thing that they have in their memory that they're like, "Oh, that wedding was so great. I love the DJ or the bit, not the DJ, the band. Like the band was phenomenal. Like."
Yeah,
It was a soigné wedding.
it
But sorry,
was.
what were you gonna say, Mason? About you and Alex? Just you're celebrating your 1 year.
Yeah, but we were celebrating our 1 year, and when we were in Asheville, like just talking about the things we noticed, right? Well, we were out to dinner to a restaurant that one of my fellow coworkers recommended to me because he used to work there, and man, it was top notch. Right? It's been a while since I have been to a restaurant where I feel like everything for the level of service that they're giving was absolutely on par perfect. Like I was just like shocked, surprised, which was fantastic.
Was it like a fine dining restaurant?
Not fine dining, but not casual either. It was just like elevated service, right? It was all farm to table foods. It was super delicious. Um, but like wine service, perfect. Opened the bottle in front of us, or actually showed off the bottle to the purchaser, which is of course my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, then opened the bottle in front of us, and then wiped the lid.
Wow.
Poured. I know, right? I was like, whoa! I was watching all these things. Poured it, and then as he stopped, he had his napkin draped over his arm, and he
His
wiped off the
serviette.
bottle. His serviette, right? He's ready. He poured it very low. Made sure she tasted it. After she tasted it, approved. Poured me the a little bit of the glass, and I always when I'm drinking wine, I always want small pours. Always
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know why. I've just come to that realization that no matter what, I never want a full glass in my even if I'm drinking a bottle, just
Mm-hmm.
always half glasses or lower. But poured me a little bit, then went back, re-poured her, and then dropped the bottle. You know, everybody did service. People checked in consistently, poured water. My water glass was never below half, which was fantastic. Or
Wow.
if it was because I just chugged it, and then they were there within a few seconds. Silverware change out happened at between the three different courses. Like I was just blown away. And then as guests were walking through the dining room, the servers would step aside accordingly, or turn their bodies properly. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you were okay to pass by, depending on whatever your service style is, and I was just like right on it. And then the kitchen, which was an open kitchen, which was really cool, was just loud but quiet. If that makes sense.
Like you could hear pots and pans and things like that, but not talking.
Or if it was talking, it was just like a repeat back to chef or the expediter. It was a chef, but
Yeah.
the expediter saying XYZ, and you'd say 3 chickens, heard, and go back to what you're doing.
See,
And
and that I think is kind of the other side of that podcast, that things we notice podcast that we didn't really talk a ton about, because I feel like we talked about the things that we noticed that are like maybe not so positive.
right,
But you do have those dining experiences where you're like, holy shit, that was like
perfect.
you couldn't, it was like picture perfect, right? Like exactly what you think. Or exactly what you said, like I want to go to that restaurant and just like see how they do things, right?
Yeah,
Because that starts from the top and works its way down, and you have to get everyone involved to get to that common goal, right? Like we are going to be the best that we can be. We're going to do proper wine service. We're going to treat our guests with respect. We're going to be a quiet kitchen minus herd calls and your normal cooking. Like that is phenomenal.
right.
So, like kudos to them, whatever the restaurant was called. What was your wine? What kind of wine did you drink? Knowing
Um,
Alex, I'm guessing it was either champagne
or,
or probably Burgundy.
mm, you know what? Both of those were definitely on our top tier choices for sure.
So
And
it wasn't one of those.
it wasn't, but when we chose
Hmm.
out of the 4 bottles we decided to go with, that those were definitely the first 2 bottles that we decided upon.
So did you only have one bottle?
We only had 1 bottle, but
Okay.
we went through the list. She pulled out a bunch of different things, white, red, kind of action on, then kind
Hmm.
of narrowed it down. And I couldn't decide at the beginning, and it started off with let's just have both. What are we deciding? And then afterwards, Burgundy, Champagne, we just decided to eliminate.
Wow.
Technically, we didn't actually eliminate it because we did end up going with a Beaujolais. So
Uh,
technically still in that category, but
yeah. Yeah.
eh, eh, eh.
Beaujolais is like the redheaded stepchild of Burgundy.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Don't get me wrong. Like I love Beaujolais and I love Gamay, but like it's technically Burgundy, but it's like the one area of Burgundy that doesn't do what the rest of Burgundy does, right?
right.
Like they just do whatever the fuck. I mean, they do Gamay, but they're the one region that doesn't do Pinot Noir Chardonnay like as the main grape. Um, wow. Did you have a specific crew?
Not that I can remember off the top of my head. Alex chose for us because she had recognized. Ooh, you hear that sound? Oh, that sounds great. Pouring. Um, but no, nothing specific because we just I can't remember what she decided. She chose it because she recognized the producer, the name, but it was a bottling we had never both of us had never had. So she was like, you know what? Let's give this producer a shot or this bottling a shot because
Yeah.
everything about this producer we know we like. So let's try it out. And it was fantastic. It was perfect because we got a slew of different items from um, just a petite salad to roasted mushrooms to a pork chop to um, what was like a rabbit crudo, not crudo, sorry, rabbit. That was a bad way.
I was like,
Bad way
what
to explain.
the
Not
fuck?
not
I
not raw.
definitely need to go to this restaurant.
Rabbit. Rabbit.
Carpaccio.
Reduction. What do you
Uh,
got? What do
like
you?
a like a
I'm
demi,
just what?
like a demi glace.
Yeah, like a demi glace made into like a dipping sauce.
Wow.
It was great,
Like almost
fantastic.
like a steak sauce type of thing.
But it was like chunks of rabbit ripped up and then
Wow.
Like it was very
Would you dip
interesting.
into it?
Just like some homemade crackers that they made.
Wow.
I
That's
probably
phenomenal.
I was like, this is fantastic, and that was sent as a gift, as in like a little nod. Thanks for coming in. You know
Happy
somebody we
anniversary.
know. Happy anniversary. Y'all enjoy, kind of thing. And I was
Hell
like,
yeah.
this is fantastic.
And honestly, those chef touches too, like when, because I really don't love going in and like name dropping or things like that. Like I'm more of a, don't get me wrong, do I love when the kitchen knows who I am? Fuck yeah, I
Yeah.
do. Like I
Oh
eat
yeah.
that shit up. Like you send me out something, you send me out a glass of sparkling wine, like I'm gonna eat that shit up. But like I want it to be more of a natural thing. Like someone recognizes my name, or I have a friend who works there who tells the maitre d or something like that. But I'm not going to be like walking in there like, oh, I'm went to
So
CIA or
so.
I went, yeah, because in the grand scheme of things, like I'm a nobody, right? Like
Right.
I'm not famous. I don't ever want to be famous, but it's like it is nice when the chef, when even when it's like, hey, we're celebrating a birthday or an anniversary, and they send out, even if it's a free dessert, right? It still feels like, wow, they actually care.
Yeah. Definitely. And it was
So
something special because it was like I tried not to name drop the whole time, but the first 10 minutes, I'm sure the chit or the little note, whatever people call it, the information that you use to pass to the server didn't kind of circulate appropriately. So um, we were sitting there, one of the people that I knew was definitely somebody I was supposed to know, like via the names I got, but not the
mhm.
connection. I said, "Hey, are you so and so?" Or "What's your name?" I can't remember exactly what I said, and started that conversation, and we just dove into it, and it was fantastic.
Yeah,
And then
and
everybody said hello.
it was crazy because we were Liv and I like a while ago back in May, I guess we were in Detroit, and like I don't fucking know anyone in Detroit. I mean, my aunt and uncle live there, but like as far as connections and stuff, so we went to a restaurant, and the whole time I'm eating there, like Liv and her brother and I went, and the whole time we're eating there, I'm like, God, I recognize that young lady. Like I know her from somewhere. And same thing with Liv, where like we just couldn't place her. Like it's probably CIA, but like I don't know. Like we don't want to be that person. Be like, hey, did you go to CIA? Like because we're not going to be like that. And we waited
Right.
until the very end because I'm like, if it's not who we think it is, I want to be able to like quickly
Walk
leave
out the door.
because like because it's been, we graduated in 2017, so I mean it's been a good 6 years since I've seen anyone. So like your mind starts to be like, I don't know, and maybe not. And so I went up. I said, hey, did you go to CIA by chance? Oh yeah, I went. And she's like, it's funny because I thought I recognized you and Olivia. She didn't know our names, but I'm like, did you know like Ray DeLucci or Mason Aronson? No, the names sound familiar, but I don't know, like maybe. And I was like, were you in SGA? Yeah, I was in SGA. I was like, well, they were both in SGA. So I'm like, maybe. I was like, I can't remember what her name is now, but super nice. And she's like, can I get you anything? And I'm like, no. Or she's like, how long are you in Detroit? Because it was like a butcher shop restaurant. She's like, can I buy you a steak, like a raw steak to like take home? And it's like, no, we're staying in a hotel. Like, I appreciate it, but like,
Man.
we weren't looking at for
Yeah.
anything. But it was
But
one of
it's just
those
like
at
it's
that
just
at that
it's that
point.
nod. It's that nod, right?
And at that point too, it was more like, okay, this is gonna drive me nuts if I don't ask her. And like, if it's not who I think it is, like shame on me. But like if it is, I would hate to not say anything.
Yeah.
So I know your thing, like, right, you wanna, because it would be, if you got this recommendation to go here and then you didn't somewhat, not name drop, but kind of have that connection of like, hey, so and so sent me here. Then
Right.
when you report back to your friend who told you to come here, they're like, "Oh, how was it? Did they do anything for you?" And you're like, "No, I didn't even say your name." And they're like, "What the fuck?"
Right.
So it's a happy medium. Um,
Definitely.
but that restaurant sounds phenomenal. Like Asheville is great. I've only been there one time for your bachelor party, which was also phenomenal. Um, but I definitely want to go back because that was a great time.
Oh yeah, we definitely need to figure out a nice long weekend. Maybe for the
Yeah.
four of us, somehow figure out a little
Hmm.
get together, a little long weekend somewhere in between to kind of really enjoy it for us all.
Yeah, that would be great. And Mason,
Yeah.
I want to. So I know you and Alex just celebrated 1 year. I know you've been busy at work, but like how has life been for you? Because I feel like we haven't a lot of times when we do these podcasts, like it's great because we get to talk every couple weeks. We check in with each other, we text each other, all that stuff. But like I feel like a lot of it is, hey, how's it going? All right, what are we talking about for the podcast tonight? So like, how's life been?
Yeah. Well, overall, life is going really well. I always wish it was going better. I think that's a blessing and a curse always to
Hmm.
have because my expectation every time I hit a new level is the next level is always, so I'll never hit my overall goal. But I think this is definitely a great place to look back and reflect on life so far, which is, you know what, pretty great. Like I've got a really great running restaurant. Made really good connections with my team. For the most part, there's always going to be a few slackers, and even being the guy who runs it, like it's inevitable to have a
Hmm.
couple of people that are just not top tier quality employees, and it just kind of happens because you just kind of have to hire people, and you hire people hoping that they do really well, and sometimes they show them their true colors and they're not perfect, and then you just try to bring them up. That's always the goal, right? And you know, being married 1 year, fantastic. Like, wow, can't believe it. Wow, this is crazy. 1 whole year. Oh my goodness. Like, this is awesome. Didn't think I would be the youngest cousin, being the first married, being married for the year before, my brother and my other cousin that I kind of grew up with, which is
Hmm.
wild. Which I'll be going to his wedding in a couple of weeks now, which is great. Like, literally a week and a half now or so of this filming, which is awesome. And we got the house. Life is good. We're building out the house. Didn't think I would be so buildy creative and wanted to do make cool cocktails and make new drinks at home and cook a lot. It's just why I don't
And the
know.
yard work and the
Ugh.
building a fire pit and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's just you keep learning, you keep living, you keep growing, and then I feel like I got to keep doing more. And it's the more I know, the less I know. If that makes sense,
Yeah, and you got two great dogs who one of them said hello at the very beginning.
Yeah, he did. He did. If you heard that, he was. That's the big buddy bear. He's the biggest lover boy you'll ever meet. I'm pretty sure he did a couple of sneak peeks in one or two of these episodes, a couple back.
Hmm.
But it is what it is, and
Yeah,
you
we
know.
might have cut out his actual entrance because it got a little chaotic and like mics were being hit with tails and all that kind of stuff. But I think there was a couple
uh,
podcasts where we were like, hold on 1 second, like all
and
right, we'll
then
cut it and we'll start back up. So,
yeah,
but that's what
definitely.
happens, They
Yeah.
they grow thumbs even though the door's closed and they break themselves in and create
Well,
chaos. But I love it.
She's the husky, smart one that knows how to open every door in our house. So it's either locking them or not. It's
She
just
opens
wild.
the door and Bear creates chaos.
Yep. He comes in barking and screaming and wanting to snuggle up against you. It's just like, "Hey, all right, everybody, let's take a break. Hold on, time out. Here we go. Let's go," kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you? How's life going for you? How's your recap? What's your recap? What is your recap?
Yeah, I mean, life's been good. Uh, Work's been crazy. Sales have been great, which
Oh,
honestly, I can't complain about because it could go the complete opposite direction where sales aren't coming in and money's not being made. But, it's been crazy. Last week, did a huge conference here in Atlanta for a very well-known organization. Can't say who it was because I signed an NDA. But it was definitely, a really big thing. One of one of the
I don't know.
like biggest accounts that the company's ever had, biggest account I've ever had, and it went well. It was crazy. I was working like 80 hours a week, or 80 hours last week, and I was getting up at 3 a.m., getting to work at 4 a.m., and leaving at 9, getting home at 10, and then doing it again for the week. So when I said Liv and I went to dinner on Friday to have ramen, I was basically a zombie at that point. That's why I didn't notice anything, because I was like basically half asleep at the table. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
been good. Just been trying to help Liv with wedding planning. She's doing the majority of it because she's my rock and she's very much into the wedding planning stuff. Trying to help her when I can, saving up for a house. So, no complaints, just trying to figure out how to do all this stuff and have time to relax and plan our 50th episode, which
Yeah.
is now pretty much
Well,
recorded. So, no, but I
it is
mean,
fantastic. You know what? This is exactly what it should have been, which is just
yeah.
us shooting the shit, just having a good time, drinking, hanging out. And you
And
know what?
honestly, I
51
wouldn't
will.
change it
No,
for
no,
for
not at all.
anything. Like, yeah, it would have been cool to have a cool guest or something like that. But honestly, like, this to me is the reason why I asked you to be my co-host. Why we do this every 2 weeks, and like, this is the reason, right? Like, yeah, anyone can talk about fucking whiskey, or anyone can drink Four Loco with some people and all that kind of stuff. But honestly, like, it's these conversations, these memories, and something that we can look back on that is the reason why we do this every week. Even though we're both crazy busy, even though we really don't have time to be doing this, we still both take the time to do it and like
Make it happen.
make it happen. And it's one of my highlights of the week. Like, I was talking to Liv on my way home and I was like, yeah, I'm recording a podcast tonight. And I was like, I really don't have time to record a podcast tonight, but honestly, it's going to be so good for my mental health and so good for like just to separate myself from work. Because if not, I'm going to come home, eat dinner, and I'm going to start working on more of my day job. And this is
Yeah.
something that is work,
But
but
not.
it's fun work.
Yeah.
And it helps to recharge and to rejuvenate and all that kind of stuff. So, like, this is why we do it, right? Because it's a good separation from our normal job and we get to shoot the shit with each other and it's fun.
And our normal life. I don't know.
And
I
we
had a
can
great
drink
weekend. Yeah,
and
and
it's
we
no
get
one
to
judges us because,
enjoy.
like, well, we have a beverage podcast. We have to have a drink during the beverage podcast. So,
Right, exactly. I you know, reminds me, right? Like I was not having the best of days today, and I don't know why. Just life piling down when you're getting ready to go back to work after
mm-hmm.
a long weekend, and this is definitely like a rejuvenation, a pouring of life back into me that I feel so much more empowered to get ready for my week and my life, and like cheers to you, brother. Like
Yeah,
I'm
cheers.
just like this is why we do it. Like I feel 100 times better, just ready to tackle on that week.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
And I
should
mean,
we?
it's been great getting caught up or playing catch up because that's what this podcast has been about. It's just playing catch up with life, kind of
Yeah.
recapping our journey in this podcast together. And there's a lot more to come. 50
Always
down, more than 50 to go. So
50 plus to go.
yeah, 50 plus to go. For the 100th episode, we'll definitely do something big.
Something more wild, like
Yeah,
where we actually have the cash moolah to make it happen.
yeah,
Maybe
and
that.
episode 80, we will be doing the 40 hands episode.
That we
Both.
both need to take the day off the next
Yep.
day to make it
Yep.
happen, but we will make this happen.
Yep.
I
We
agree.
got to make it happen for the program. But I want to kind of wrap this sucker up, episode 50, with our question of the day. Mason, what is the question of the day today?
The question of the day is, what is one spirit that you have a great story about? Adam, what
I'm
is
gonna get
that?
sentimental as shit. I had a
All
story
right,
before we
go
started
for it.
this podcast, but now it's gonna be Basil Hayden because that's what we drank on episode 50 of the Assemblage Beverage podcast. Like
I
I'm
like
not a
that.
whiskey drinker, but these whiskey gingers have been hitting nice. And honestly, Basil Hayden,
Fantastic.
phenomenal. I mean, it's like 50-ish bucks a bottle, 40 some bucks a bottle, and it is very good. They also have a blue label, which I think is like a 20-year age or 25-year age, and that is holy shit, that is nice. But just their normal like white label Basil Hayden, phenomenal. Got to drink it while recording with my best friend, and that's gonna be, I'm gonna remember that for a long
Forever.
time
Yeah.
until I go
Uh,
crazy and I can't remember things anymore. But I'll probably
that'll
still
happen.
remember. I'll probably still remember the Basil Hayden episode. Mason,
Yeah.
what's one spirit that you have a great story about?
Well, I guess because definitely won't ever not be part of my life now is the Suerte Anejo tequila because of our 50th episode. But if I have to throw in another one just because, I can't copy exactly what you said, that would be just rude, right? Uh, I, but I would copy exactly what you said.
Mm-hmm.
I would throw in the Weller, which is also what I actually am drinking tonight. Well, I finished already, but
You did drink tonight.
I did drink. But the Weller Green Label, the inexpensive, you can drink anytime, anywhere, all the time, has literally been a monumental portion of 90% of my life once I started drinking.
I was gonna say 90% of your entire life. Jesus
Once I
Christ!
started drinking.
Like Mason,
With
you're
that
only
caveat.
Mason, you're only 28 years old.
Yeah. No, once I started drinking, right? The first time having the most expensive whiskey I've ever had, or at least the first like one where you're like, holy shit, how much was that? And was Weller Green Label with my father-in-law, and then right after that, which actually he was just my girlfriend's father at the time, wife now. Wow, gosh, it's fantastic, but it's wild. But then it was, a part of my favorite cocktails, the um, cocktails that, if I'm going to order a Boulevardier, I'll probably order it with Weller just because I think it's probably the best mixer for me
Mm-hmm.
if I want something special. And then at my wedding, Weller Green Label was part of it. And now I'm drinking it tonight for the 50th anniversary, our 50th episode, 50th version episode of our beverage podcast. We're drinking it tonight, too. Just
Hell yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, and I'll give one honorable mention too, since I've been fucking mushy all night. My other thing would probably be some vintage rum that I had a bottle of 97 Plantation. I forget what it was from, like Peru or Panama, or I forget exactly where it came from, but I had a friend Alex, who's actually been on this podcast, one of the first episodes, Alex Lopez, shout out to you. And he's a big whiskey drinker. And I was, I'm a big rum guy, as I've mentioned. And I had a bottle of like 97 and Plantation and let him try it. And he's like, holy shit, this is amazing. And I think that's kind of because we're both in the beverage world, like beverage is our love language, so to speak. Like it's our thing that we share with people to get people together, right? Like all of my best memories as an adult all revolve around alcohol, wine, spirits, beer. Maybe that makes me an alcoholic, but also like the most fun I've had has been like blind tasting wine parties where I blind people on like 10 wines and just seeing people who know about wine and they don't know anything about it and they're trying to guess the price. Like I love that shit. And that to me is like, it's more than one spirit that I have a story about, but it's just like beverage is so fucking cool and it can bring so many people together. And yeah, it's pretty good stuff. It's
Yeah,
the juice of
this
life.
it is. You know, it kind of reminds me. I just finished the or refinish because I read it once before, but then I decided to read it again because every now and again you had to reread a couple books.
Yeah,
Was
I
the
don't
history of
read,
the
so
world? Yeah, you should. History of the
I
world
should, yeah.
in six classes.
Oh
Where it
yeah,
talks about
yeah.
just everything from beer, wine, Coca Cola, water, tea. I'm missing something probably with beer, wine,
Spirits too,
spirits,
or like
Yeah,
whiskey,
beer,
right?
wine. I just missed over beer, wine, spirits, Coca Cola, tea, and water. Those are six, and it's just like
That was a great
gives you
book.
perspective. It is. It is a really good book. It just kind of re-gave me perspective because I read it at such a young age that I just like didn't really compile all the thoughts, and then I just reread it literally this last week and was just like, wow, I pulled so much more out of this, and it got me thinking. I really need to go back and reread a few different books
Hmm.
from my life because I bet you I'll pull something different from it each time, which
Yeah,
is
I would read
so
more, but I
was
fall asleep instantly whenever I open a book, so I'm not very
that's
good.
why
But
I listen.
yeah, I do like an audiobook, especially if they yeah, audibles.
Podcast. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
especially if they like talk in a British accent. I fucking love that shit with the audiobooks. I fucking love that shit so much. But yeah, I
uh,
mean, we want to know your answer of the question of the day, which is what is one spirit that you have a great story about? Drop it down low in the Spotify. I didn't mention this, but this will be our third podcast that is ready to be watched as a video on Spotify. So I started doing that a couple podcasts ago. Forgot to mention it, and but now you can watch it on YouTube, or you can watch it or listen to it on Spotify, and you can answer the question of the day every single 2 weeks. There's a new question of the day. Answer that shit. Smash that subscribe button. Share it with your friends. And just a reminder, two things. Our scholarship is open through the 13th of November. Go to www.somfoundation.com/scholarships. Look for the Assemblage Wine Scholarship for aspiring sommeliers. And then the other thing is all of our merch is 50% off from when this podcast comes out, October 19th, through October 31st. Go get yourself a hoodie, a hat, a t shirt, a wine workshop, all that shit. Mason's got a t shirt on. I got a t shirt on. He's got that's probably the podcast t shirt. I
uh,
got I think this is the Here for a Good Time, Not a Long Time t shirt. Go buy them because we are hopefully going to sell all the stuff we have in stock, and then we're going to start doing some new merch whenever we have time, which we don't have time for because the golf
but we'll
merch
figure it
never
out.
came out this year, but
It
it's on the
will.
back
We'll
burner for
figure it out.
next year. It's on the back burner for next year because golf season is pretty much over unless you live in Arizona or Florida.
North Carolina. I'm still playing.
Yeah, I haven't played in a couple weeks or a couple months now, but we'll get back out there. And
Long
Mason,
sleeves make it feel warm. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
drink some whiskey on the course, a little whiskey ginger.
Well, Adam, definitely. Last shot. Cheers.
Last shot. Cheers. Episode 50, Assemblage Beverage Podcast. Playing catch up. Cheers, Mason. Here's to 50 plus more. Love you, bro.
Love you too.
I'm Adam.
I'm Mason,
And keep
and
on
keep on
blending.
blending.
Peace, guys.
See you later.